大家好, 여러분, 안녕하세요. minasan, konnichiwa. Hello, and today is the 12th of January 2025, and this is my 11th weekly update. Right? So, last week I spoke about my New Year's resolutions, where I talked about Chinese, Korean, and Japanese taking the proficiency test. I actually managed to speak to one of my Chinese teachers, and she thinks that I am okay. The second Chinese teacher thinks that I'm squarely in HSK 5 zone. So she thinks that I'm in HSK 5 and I could take HSK 6. So with the way things are going, it looks like I'm probably going to take the HSK 5 in the middle of the year. Right? I'll see how that goes. Right? For Korean, plan is still to take topic 1 in April. For Japanese, interestingly enough, I'm going to explain later why I struck it off. Right? So last week, 2 hours of italki lessons, I only managed to do 1 hour. So one of my teachers seems to be very busy, and I don't think, like, she might be on a break. Probably she's on a break, right? Yeah. So I guess she's on a break and she's not teaching for a while. So I couldn't schedule a lesson with her. I didn't do any Lingq for Chinese, right? So that's unfortunate. I think did a pretty bad job this week for Chinese. But during the lesson with my teacher, we did have a lot of interesting conversations and a lot of vocabulary, which I wanted to share, right? So, 找对象, right? So, I suppose 对象 is actually a pretty important common word, right? And I always never registered 对象 to be an important word, right? So I think it's good that in my lesson, my teacher brought it up and we talked about it, and I kind of have more internalized it that when I see 对象, it will be I will understand what's the meaning, right? So 对象 is to basically a partner, a romantic partner, right? So 期待 is expectation. Yep, I think that's also important. I feel that in a mature conversation, you would probably come across the word 期待 or have to use the word 期待 to to express the word expectation, right? 很符合外国人的标准, right? So meet the standard of foreigners. Okay, so where this conversation was is that we was talking about conversations that's very typical during the Chinese New Year, right? And that is usually relatives asking, 你找了对象？你找了对象了吗？你找对象了吗？ Have you found a partner, right? And so these are all related words, right? Like related vocabulary that might happen this hypothetical conversation, right? So from meeting the standards of foreigners, we're talking about how certain people may be more suited for dating 外国人, so 他们会符合外国人的标准. So one of the things that I was saying is that, such kinds of foreign relationships strongly depends on 交流, right? Are they able to have communication despite definitely cultural but even language barriers, right? So 交流, right? So if someone has to, if one of the person in the relationship 依赖 on the other person, 依靠, right, on the other person, that probably changes the relationship power dynamics a bit, right? But I think how the power dynamics eventually plays out depends on the 环境, right? So if anyway, I don't know why I'm explaining all this. The words are all there, but yeah. Another word that this is the second time that my teacher has brought up this vocabulary, and it's 靠谱, right? So someone that is reliable or dependable, and of course the opposite word is 不靠谱, right? Someone that's not dependable or reliable, right? Someone that's like playful or just not someone that's very serious, right? We also learn 软件, right? Or if it's on the phone, they would call it APP, right? So APP if it's on the phone, but you also can call it a 软件, right? So we're talking about dating 软件, right? And then how some people on such using such 软件, whether they are 认真 or they are 不认真, right? When it comes to looking for a long-term relationship. So I thought it was quite interesting vocabulary and a conversation, which I can totally imagine myself, hearing this over the next during the Chinese New Year that is coming up, right? So quite useful vocabulary. So Korean, also terrible this week. Did not manage to schedule an italki lesson. Did not do any of my talk to me in Korean. But I did manage to do Pimsleur Level 2, Lesson 4. So I at least get 30 minutes of Korean exposure every week, right? For Japanese, very promising this week, right? So I always complete my 5 episodes of anime, always subbed, never dubbed, right? I did do one lesson of Pimsleur, level 1, lesson 25, slowly finishing up level 1. Probably by February, I'll be starting level 2. But most importantly, I finally took 1 hour of an italki lesson, right? For Japanese, right? Finally, very interesting, right? So during the lesson, it was the first introduction lesson. This teacher can speak in English, knows Chinese, and of course is teaching me Japanese, right? So the first half of the lesson was about her teaching style, how she helps her students, the kind of expectations she would like from her students, the kind of the beliefs that she has regarding language learning, and how to improve, right? Like generally, right? Although she was talking about Japanese, right? It's more of about principles of language learning, right? It wasn't very specific to Japanese, but of course she was giving examples in Japanese, right? So she keeps saying like, oh, you should have a lot of input, right? Like if you want to watch anime, you should just keep watching lots and lots of anime to just increase the exposure and input, right? So all these are not things that I don't know, but it's good to, of course, hear again, right? The second half of the lesson was her kind of sounding and feeling out where is my ability and the level on the scale, right? Or well, not the scale, but where am I, right? Like how good is my Japanese and what areas am I lacking, right? So one of the things which I told her myself is that I feel quite okay with hiragana, but I feel a bit lacking with katakana, right? And I feel that this is like if I see a big string of katakana words, I have to really slowly stop and look at each syllable one by one and slowly think, right? I just feel I don't have enough practice reading katakana words or seeing certain I won't say fixed, but like certain groups of words that you could always expect to see in katakana. So I'll give you an example, right? Like I think like potato, right? Potato is something that is quite a common katakana word, right? So if I have more exposure and I learn certain katakana chunks of words, it'll be very easy for me to read it faster, right? So yeah. So she did send me a bunch of exercises to go through my hiragana and katakana. And I thought the best resource that she passed to me was this combined chart where there's both the hiragana and katakana together with the same sounds, right? Because it's the exact same sounds. It's just that it's written differently, right? So I'm staring at this chart. I'm finding it useful. And what else? Okay, also during the lesson, she tested me on my pronunciation on certain Japanese words, and also like the compound sounds with like the small yo and the small u and the small ya, right? So like maybe like sha or like q or like show, right? So she tested me on those and she's like, oh yeah, your pronunciation is fine, right? And well, I would say my problem is just familiarity with katakana, right? So I feel like even hiragana, I'm not definitely at 100% yet, and I still might stumble, right? I get very confused with n, ne, and wa, right? So that is the three that confuses me. Oh, and me, right? So n, ne, me, wa, right? Those are the three that the four that if I just glance at them, I have to think, right? And you know, yeah, I just have to think really hard and know which is the one that I'm trying to say, right? So yeah, there's actually one more resource that she gave me. It's not a PDF file or anything. It was actually a link. So it was a link to a website that you can just practice your hiragana and katakana. And I was okay all the way until, you know what, maybe next week I will show that. I'll show myself maybe trying that out. Right? So but yeah, I thought that was interesting. I'm going to try to have an hour of lesson with this teacher once a week, right? I'll see how it goes. I mean, so far it's only the first lesson, but I thought it was very promising. I felt quite good vibes coming from this teacher. So let's hope that I can stick with it, right? I feel my problem is finding regular time for me to take my classes, right? So yeah. Right. So outside of Chinese, Japanese, Korean, still have not done my video on my different levels. Perennial issue. I have wrote down the dates for the different registration and examination dates. So yes, right. So this week, what am I gonna do? I'm going to try 2 hours of italki lessons. I should do the link queue for Chinese, but actually, maybe I should change this, right? So I'll verbally change this now, right? But my teacher gave me, one of my teachers gave me a set of questions for HSK 5 and HSK 6. So I'm going to try the set for number 5, right? And if it's way too hard, I'm not even gonna attempt 6. But if I could, struggle through it, then I'll give 6 a shot, right? So I think for this week, I'll try to do 2 hours of italki lessons, and I will attempt the HSK material that my teacher sent to me, right? For Korean, I will try to schedule with my teacher 1 hour of lesson. We'll do Pimsleur level 2 lesson 5, and I will try to just find a time, sit down and blaze through these 30 essential Korean adjectives. I'm sure I know 80-90% of these adjectives already very vividly, right? And there just might be some that I need some help remembering, right? And that's what this revision is for. For Japanese, will be now 1 hour of italki lessons with this new teacher that I have. Continue my 5 episodes of anime that I do every week, and also to get through Pimsleur level 1 lesson 26. So outside of Chinese, Japanese, Korean is the forever on my to-do list to make a video in English about the different levels of my Chinese, Japanese, Korean. I believe next week registration for topic 1 opens up. So, and topic 2 opens up, right? I don't know. Actually, I feel like I may want to register for topic 2, but I think what I'm going to do is when I take my Korean test, when I take my Korean italki class later this week, I'm gonna talk to my teacher about it, right? About whether I should be a pussy and retake the topic 1 test, knowing that I'm probably going to squarely, pass the highest level, level 2, or if I should just go for the topic 2 test and see where I fall in the level 3, 4, 5, or 6, right? I don't know. And also, I should probably decide on the HSK level that I want to take, which I will probably be able to decide based on the HSK material that my Chinese teacher passed to me. So yeah, that's the end for my update this week. I think with this new year, me attempting to include Japanese into the mix is a big step, because I'll be going from from my 3 hours a week to 4 hours a week of lessons. To be honest, I also know that 4 hours a week, even on a single language, is not enough. But I'm doing it 2-1-1 over 3 languages, right? So I would say, this is just me easing into it and trying to cope. And when I can, and when I also find enough time to self-study and to go over the material, right? I think I can increase the hours, right, and the frequency that I do these classes, because I feel that currently the constraint is not so much. Well, at least for Korean and Japanese, I feel the constraint is not so much the number of italki classes that I take, but a lot of it is actually my lack of personal involvement, right? Like non-class time studying. Like how much time do I spend outside of class reviewing whatever we talked about during class or related information, right? Or studying something on my own at similar level. I would have to say for Korean, unfortunately, it's also sad for me to say, but I have not been pushing myself very hard, right? And for Japanese, I've been taking it very in a very relaxed way, of just feeding myself a lot of input in the Japanese language through anime, right? So now I'm taking this next step, trying to, you know, force myself to take 1 hour of classes to at least find where what level I am with my Japanese teacher, to figure out that okay, this is where I am, and these are all the things that I have to push forward to and, you know, learn and understand so that I can progressively move on to more complicated, I suppose, material, vocabulary, grammar, right? So that I'm just more comfortable with the language. Yeah, I would say for Korean, I am very, very, very lacking in the self discipline, and I suppose that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this whole weekly, you know, language update, you know, on this YouTube channel to just, you know, give me that accountability and motivation to just stick with my plan, even though it might not be enough. But always something is better than nothing, I believe, right? So one step forward, slowly, right? I will hopefully eventually get somewhere, right? For Chinese, it's actually, I would say, the easiest of the three languages because I feel that I do have a decently strong current level, right? Current foundation, or like my level is at a certain, you know, at a certain, my level is at a certain, well, my skill is at a certain level that I pretty much can understand what my teacher's saying. And when she says certain words, I can guess the intention and the meaning, right? So, and I can speak and reply back, maybe slowly, maybe with wrong pinyin, right? But I can slowly get my point across, which I feel the point of communication, 交流, right? Is to be able to communicate what you want to say with the other person and to be able to understand what the other person is saying, right? I'm like, of course, everyone hopes to achieve fluency, but I think that before reaching fluency, to reach a level that you can communicate with somebody else and they can communicate with you without too much difficulty or inconvenience, or just, you know, like lag, right? That you are translating or through an app, right? Like if you can overcome this and you can get your basic point across and you can understand what the other person is saying to a rough degree, right? I feel that's a good level to be at. That's a level that you could probably live in that country, right? And improve from there, right? But if you are not at that level, it's probably really difficult to go through daily life. So I feel that my Mandarin is actually at a good enough level that I could be in a fully Mandarin situation and I can understand daily conversations of whatever's relevant to me, and would be able to communicate to people what I want to do, or what or questions that I'm asking, right? So anyway, that was a really long conclusion, but yeah. So that's the end of this week's update, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you. Bye bye.